You want more evidence that Mark depicts Jesus as God in the flesh? Well, stick with me for today's episode about Mark 2:8. Let's read Mark 2:8. Kai euthus epignos ho Jesus to pneumai autou hoti hutos dialogizantai en autois legei autois. Ti tauta dialogizese in tais cardiesis humon? All right, the verse is longer than usual. So let's try to break it down. So the start is always the same. There is the conjunction kai and that we recognize. And actually, also, this euthus is very typical on Mark. A lot of sentences start with kai euthus. So a conjunction and an adverb. And right away and immediately, right? This is part of the rhetorical way of Mark writing and create emphasis. Now, what is the subject? It's right here. O Jesus, right? This is Jesus. So this is the subject of the sentence. Um, and this subject is related to the verb that is down here, lege. Okay, so the subject, O Jesus, Jesus, is connected with the verb lege. All right, so this is basically subject and predicate. Um, what is the rest? Well, the rest is basically held by this epignos, which is a participle. Okay, so it's a participle describing actually what Jesus knew. Okay, so this is this epignos. We're gonna see that it means knowing. Okay, knowing, and then there's this prepositional phrase here, to pneumati autou, in the dative case that says basically how Jesus knew, or by what power Jesus knew what he knew. Okay, and then and where the autou, we've seen it so many times, indicates of him, right? It's his is a typical way of creating a sort of possessive pronoun. Technically means of him, so it specify um, whose is this pneumati, right? Is his pneuma. And so the second part here, the second line here, is connected to this participle. So Jesus knew what? So this is the conjunction, this hoti is a conjunction that introduces what Jesus knew. Okay. And Jesus knew that, and this is the verb of the second clause, right? So this is, we can call it verb two. It's about what Jesus knew, right? And he knows about the Pharisees and the scribes that are thinking in their heart, right, things against Jesus. So this is the verb that refers to what the scribes and the Pharisees were thinking. Hutos, it's another adverb. We saw it in Mark 2:8. We're going to see what it means. And then this en autois, it's another prepositional phrase introduced by the preposition en plus dative, which means in, plus the place where something is taking place. All right, so it's the place of the action, and then um, the whole structure that is held by this participle is basically done. And so the simple structure or the simple subject, Jesus, and the simple predicate, lege, then it's connected with these autois because Jesus tells them to them, right? So this is a personal pronoun, and you see the connection between autou and autois. This is, we're going to see it. Autou is genitive masculine singular, autois is dative masculine plural, but they're both personal pronoun. And the last part of the verse is actually a quotation, right? It's the direct speech of Jesus. And as you see this semicolon here, we've seen it many times, is the Greek way of defining the question mark. So Jesus is asking something to the scribes and the Pharisees that they're thinking things in their heart. And so the question starts with this T that we saw it also in the previous verses, which is just a why, sort of a why. Okay, so it's an interrogative adverb, why. And then you have this verb here. There's verb number three. Okay. And this tauta is actually the direct object connected to this verb here. And then the whole thing here at the end is just a big prepositional phrase, again with this en plus dative and tais cardies, which again indicates where something is happening, right? Exactly as up here, en heotois. And then you have another personal pronoun, humon, okay, that we're going to see. It's in the second personal plural. We're going to get into that. So this is the grammar underlying the whole verse. So now let's try to put things together and get to a translation. So let's start. Kai, we said it's the conjunction and this euthus, we already said it, is a sort of right away or immediately. Okay, immediately and immediately. What is happening immediately? Well, Jesus is epigneus. Okay, let's start from this participle. So this is a participle in the aorist tense, okay, and in the masculine singular nominative. Why? Because it's connected to the subject, which is Jesus, right? Now, the verb underlying epigneus is the verb epigignosco, okay, epigignosco. Now, the verb epigignosco is made up of two pieces, right? The preposition epi and the verb gignosco. Now, the verb gignosco means to know. Okay, when Jesus says, from the fruits you will recognize the tree, right? That's the verb gignosco. Gnosco is the knowledge, is the verb of the knowledge, right? To know, from which the Latin verb cognoscere comes, and from which the English word related to recognize or cognition and stuff like that. So it's about the knowledge, right, of the mind. Now, this preposition, epi, which generally means on, upon, stuff like that, is just a reinforcement of the concept. So it's not just merely in being aware of something, but it means profoundly knowing perfectly. So it's a perfect knowledge, it's a profound knowledge, right? So it's just more than being aware, it's knowing perfectly. Okay, so Jesus immediately knew basically what the scribes and the Pharisees were thinking in their mind. Okay, that's what Mark is trying to say. Okay, so and ho Jesus, so this is Jesus. Ho, we said it many times, definite article that is used with the proper names, that it's not the practice in English, so we can definitely drop it into translation. So we can say in Jesus, knowing immediately to pneumati autu. So let's spend time here because this is very important. Now, it's in the dative case, and you see it here from this um, omega with in this particular way, and this ending ati from the word pneuma. Okay, pneuma. So it's a dative singular. Okay, dative singular. Now, dative is a case that in Greek is used. In Greek is used to define many things. In this particular case, it can indicate the where, but mainly the means by which Jesus knows what he knows. Okay. Now, what is pneuma? Pneuma is the spirit. Okay. Think about the word pneumonia. Pneumonia in English, right? It comes directly from this Greek term. It talks about our lungs, so our where we breathe, right? So it's the breathe, is a breath, as a spirit. Okay, it's basically the Greek direct straight translation of the Hebrew word ruach, which is the Hebrew word that is used to identify the Holy Spirit. Okay, the breath of God. Okay, so this means by. To is a definite article, so technically, literally says by the Spirit, autu, which means of Him. Okay, which of course we are going to translate as His. Okay, so literally means by His spirit, okay, by his spirit. So, and Jesus, knowing immediately by his spirit or in his spirit or through his spirit, hoti, that, okay, this is the conjunction. He knew that what? This is the verb, dialogizantai. So we already encountered this verb in the past verses, and you see here twice repeated here is the same verb, dialogizantai, dialogizeste. The only difference is that, the verb is dialogizomai, okay, that's right here, dialogizomai. It means to dialogue, right? To dialogue. Um, dialogue, and to think, to reason, and stuff like that. From which the word dialogue. We have the word dialogue in English. So, what is the tense here? Present. Okay, that is important. Present tense. Both dialogizontai and dialogizese is present tense. The only difference is that dialogizontai, this ending, tells us that it is a third person plural, while this dialogizeste is a second person plural. Okay, so this means they were thinking, or where they were dialoguing. So, and Jesus, knowing immediately in his spirit that they were reasoning, we can say they were reasoning hutus like this. Okay, like this. Okay. This is an adverb that means like that, like this. So that they were reasoning like this in heautois. Now, what is this in heautois? So you have the preposition "en," which means in, that wants the dative. And in fact, you see it here. The case ois indicates a masculine plural dative case. Okay, so this is the reflexive pronoun, personal pronoun, which means basically themselves. Okay, so themselves. Now, themselves. So this "en heautois" means in themselves, right? That's the meaning. So they were reasoning like that in themselves, meaning they were not speaking out loud. All this reasoning that the scribes and the Pharisees were doing by asking themselves, "Who is this guy that says that the paralytic sins are forgiven? Who does he think he is? God? Only God can forgive sins," right? So they were thinking and reasoning all this thing in their mind, and Jesus knows what's going on in their mind. So, and Jesus, immediately knowing in his spirit that they were reasoning like this in themselves, lege autois, tells them. Okay, so now that's the verb lego, again in the present, which is typical of Mark, because we said it so many times. He wants to use this historical present to make it as if the action is happening right now in front of our eyes. And in fact, all these verbs are in the present, right? So Jesus, knowing immediately in his heart that they are reasoning like this in themselves, tells them, okay, tells to them. So this autois is a personal pronoun. As you can see, this ending ois, like this heautois, it's a dative plural, okay, masculine plural. The only difference you see between heautois and autois is this epsilon in front, and this epsilon in front makes it reflexive. Okay. Okay, so this means in themselves, because they are thinking to themselves, right? But here's Jesus that tells them, right? So autois is not reflexive; it's just them. It's separate from Jesus. Okay, that's the only difference. And the last sentence tells us what Jesus tells them, right? And it's actually a question, as we said. So the question starts with this T, which means why. Sorry, right there, why. And the verb dialogizese, we already said, is a second person plural, so it means why are you reasoning? Why are you dialoguing? Tauta. these things. Okay, these things. Now, tauta. What is tauta? Tauta is the demonstrative. Is a demonstrative pronoun in the neuter case. Okay, neuter plural. You see the ending in alpha. Okay, this ending in alpha here indicates neuter plural. So neuter plural is usually associated with when you find this demonstrative pronoun in the neuter, you need to add things, right? Why are you thinking these or these things or these ideas, or you can attach whatever you think is more proper, right? We could just say, why are you thinking these things? Entais cardiais. Now, this is the same expression that Mark used in the previous verses. You have the preposition en, which you already seen. It means in, exactly as up here is the same structure. And then en wants the dative. Okay, it's the dative. And you see that it's a dative plural. You have the ending in eyes. Here you had the ending in ois. Why? Because this was masculine, while here it's feminine. Okay, this is feminine. Why? Because the word here, cardia, we saw it in the previous verses, means heart. Cardiac arrest, right? Means heart, related to the heart. And heart in Greek is a feminine noun. All right, in plural. So in the hearts, literally. So Thais is definite article. In the hearts, humon. Now, humon is a personal pronoun again, and this ending here on tells us that this is a genitive plural, and so technically means of you. Okay, this epsilon here in the beginning tells us that this is a second personal plural pronoun, so it's you. Um, if it were hemon, it would be of us. So the difference between the eta and the epsilon moves from the first personal plural to the second personal plural. So of you, it means yours, right? We could translate as yours. So in the technically means in the hearts of yours, meaning in your hearts. Okay, so let's put everything together. And the translation of Mark 2:8 reads like this. And Jesus, knowing immediately in his spirit that they were reasoning like this in themselves, tells them, why are you thinking these things in your heart? So, why is this verse so important? Well, I would like to draw your attention on two passages. The first is right here. We said this means in his spirit or by his spirit. The second expression is right here, entais cardies, that we translated in their hearts. Now, why are these two expressions, by his spirit and in their hearts, so important? Because here Mark, or well, Jesus himself, both of them are pointing to something very specific that we can only find in the Old Testament. What does it mean that Jesus immediately understood by his spirit, by the power of his spirit? What is Mark trying to tell us here? Well, there's a reference to a psalm here, Psalm 139. We're going to see it right now. And entais cardies, in their hearts. Jesus knew what was going on in their hearts, in the hearts of the scribes and the Pharisees, even before they would speak that out. Now, here's just another reference to the Old Testament, in particular to First Kings. Okay, so let me jump first to Psalm 139, then to First Kings, and I show you how this verse in Mark tells us so much about who Jesus is. Now, Psalm 139, we're going to read the first 7 verses. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You search out my path and my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely. You hem me in behind and before and lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? Okay, I hope you caught all the connection to Mark 2:8. So here's a psalm where David is basically telling the Lord, look, you know everything. You know everything that goes on in my mind, inside me, inside my heart. I don't attain that knowledge. That knowledge is only yours. And so I cannot escape from you. Okay. And in fact, if you read the rest of the psalm, it keeps on saying, I can go deep down in the sea, up high in heaven. I can try to run away from you. You just know always at every moment what's going on inside me. You discern your thoughts. You know what's on my tongue even before I speak it. You know it completely. You see, the perfect knowledge of God. Again, such knowledge is too wonderful for me. I cannot attain. What is David saying here? This type of knowledge, the knowledge of what somebody else thinks, and that perfect, complete knowledge is something that is only a feature of God. It's too incredible for a human being. A human being cannot possibly have that type of knowledge. All right? And read verse 7. Where can I go? Meaning, where can I flee? Can I escape your spirit? No, because the Spirit of God is everywhere. And God, through His Spirit, by the power of His Spirit, knows everything. Everything, even those things that go on inside our heart, inside our mind. Do you catch the connection? When Mark says that Jesus, in His Spirit or by His Spirit, knew, you see, know it completely, epignos. He had this complete, full understanding, knowledge of what was going on in their hearts, their thoughts, and discerned the thoughts of the scribes and the Pharisees. Well, he's saying he did that by the power of his spirit. Well, who else other than God has that power? Mark is saying Jesus did this in his spirit, and only the Spirit of God is able of such a knowledge. And Jesus did it by the power of his own spirit. Well, just draw your conclusion. Who is the Spirit of Christ, the Spirit of Jesus? Is the same Spirit of God, is the Holy Spirit. The Spirit of Christ is the Spirit of God. Therefore, Christ is God. But wait, there's more. I promise you to go to First Kings chapter 8. Let's just read this one verse, verse 39. It says, then here in heaven, your dwelling place, forgive, act, and render to all whose hearts you know. All whose hearts you know. Speaking, of course, about God. According to all their ways, for only you know what is in every human heart. So in the Old Testament, God says that only He and He alone knows what is in every human heart. Only you know what is in every human heart. If only God knows what's in every human heart. And Jesus says, why do you think this thing in your hearts? And Mark says, Jesus knew immediately what was going on in their hearts. What are Jesus and Mark telling us? That Jesus is God.